Hi, my name is Kristen Lawrence, and my presentation is on inventive spelling in kindergarten. The subject of spelling is one of high interest to me. You can call me a bit of a word nerd. This is a picture of me in second grade winning the spelling bee at Merwin Elementary School. I was a spelling bee participant each year from first grade through sixth grade. This is my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Yarnell, and these are my brothers. Mrs. Yarnell planted a seed and inspired me to love spelling and writing. This was during the era of heavy phonics instruction. So when I read through the scenario about inventive spelling, I had a conversation with my mom about how I learned to spell with Mrs. Yarnell. Oh, that rhymes. Okay. My mom shared how Mrs. Yarnell used visual books that slowly took away the pictures, and she provided opportunities for me to write expressively without fixing my errors. In scenario number two kindergarten teachers attended a writer's workshop and heard about inventive spelling. One shared it helps children develop their spelling, phonics, and phonemic awareness. The other disagreed, stating it's not research-based and can cause students more harm than good when they write down the wrong words. As a literacy specialist, I can help by sharing what research says about inventive spelling and its implications on literacy development in kindergarten. What is inventive spelling? In Words Their Way, it is defined as spelling as best you can, also known as developmental spelling. It is the self-directed attempts of young children to represent words in print. Inventive spelling is the way a child spells words that aren't stored in his or her memory phonetically, a term coined by Charles Reed in 1970. It is also a developmental, or it can also be described as a developmental process that reflects a young child's present understanding of how words are represented in print, or known as pre-conventional spelling. What does the research on inventive spelling say? My findings showed it aligns with Common Core State standards referred to as phonetic spelling. It facilitates and strengthens the connections between graphic and phonological awareness and is highly encouraged to implement in the early literacy classroom for emergent readers. It works within a child's ZPD or zone of proximal development of a Gotskian approach to learning that is child-directed and exploratory. Inventive spelling aligns with the word study approach to instruction versus the traditional spelling instruction approach, which is something I'll share in the next few slides, but research shows that word study is more effective. Inventive spelling is an integral part of early reading instruction and builds students' confidence, where they are more apt to enjoy writing and take risks when they know they're not going to be corrected on all their spelling errors. Children progress through 5 developmental stages. With appropriate feedback, inventive spelling does not impede the learning of proper conventional spellings. In fact, it facilitates learning. Inventive spelling is used to progress students to conventional spelling and is developmentally appropriate for kindergartners. It offers teachers a glimpse into a child's developing knowledge of how spoken language is represented in print. So through developmental inventive spelling, teachers can observe a child's developmental thought process and look for their knowledge of what they know just by seeing them take risks and spell words. So going back to the traditional versus word study approach, the traditional approach relies on rote memorization from an assigned list of words, is rule-driven, learners memorize words in isolation. Students don't tend to retain the words and apply them to their reading and writing. Kind of going along with the phrase is Friday test, Monday miss. This approach, teachers are comfortable with a format and it doesn't require familiarity with developmental stages. It does work for irregular words and sight word, such as sight word memorization. Findings showed 84% of English words are mostly predictable. Well, this is what led to weekly spelling tests, as teachers would test students on those skills each week. The word study approach does look at the predictable patterns in words and teaches it through word sorts, games, and active involvement, which research says children learn best through. It is the most effective way to teach spelling, which is compatible with research and allows students to abstract patterns and build connections. It also teaches word origin, structure, and meaning. The drawback is that it depends on teachers' knowledge base of English word patterns. Some recommended spelling instruction is the integrated approach, which is multisensory, builds on phonological awareness, connects to explicit phonics instruction, allows inventive spelling with effective feedback in the early stages of development, scaffolds instruction, works within a child's ZPD or zone of proximal development, allowing them to develop and progress through at their pace of learning. And the sight word practice, memorizing irregular words, is where the traditional spelling approach does come into effect and has positive results. These are the 5 stages of development. In the first stage, students string scribbles or letters. There's no phonetic association. This is between the ages of 3 to 5. In kindergarten to 2nd grade or end of 1st grade, the second stage is letter sound recognition, where students learn short vowels, digraphs, and also blends. The third stage is long vowels, R-controlled vowels. That's 7 to 9 years old. In the fourth stage is where students learn multisyllabic words with inflectional endings and homophones. And in the last stage, they're learning words like the Latin and Greek words of words that are interrelated and base words. Here's a picture of the stage that we're looking at here for kindergarten development. You can see how much the improvement is from 3 years old to when they enter into kindergarten. Here the child is saying, I have a blue hat. You could see they start with a capital. They're looking at the beginning sound, a little bit of spacing the words here. They're able to spell hat, looking at the CVC word. This is the alphabetic stage. The progression is through learning the patterns in words and eventually making meaning from more difficult words. So to recap, inventive spelling builds students' confidence. It's child-directed and encourages exploration. Students are more apt to take risks and enjoy writing when they inventive spell. It encourages students to try to spell words they want to so they don't feel limited by their word choices simply because they're unaware of a word's spelling. It provides insight for the teacher to observe students' letter-sound relationships. It's research-based and aligns with the Common Core state standards and is a significant factor predicting future literacy skills, which was evident throughout the studies I read and the articles that I researched. It also works within a child's ZPD, so students don't feel frustrated trying words that are too difficult for them. Some final thoughts. The goal is always to move children toward the use of standard spellings. Traditional spelling instruction is ineffective, doesn't account for the developmental stages, and it's strongly recommended to reevaluate the traditional method that many schools are using today. Teachers should learn the developmental stages of spelling so they can provide proper and effective instruction for their students. Inventive spelling is strongly recommended in the emergent stages of reading, in early literacy. If it continues into third grade, then that, or even younger, like second grade, then that's where intervention is needed. The Vygotskian approach with guided support, positive feedback. Students are not memorizing words beyond their current developmental level. And inventive spelling attempts do not set children on a path where they will not learn to spell correctly. Fears that allowing children to invent their own spelling may prevent them from learning. It does not hamper development, it improves it. So going back here to the initial question, the initial scenario, the teacher who disagreed, stating it is not research-based and can cause students more harm than good when writing down the wrong words, is incorrect. Yes, there are some studies that show some cons of inventive spelling if it is not taught with corrective feedback, if the teacher is not progressing students through the stages of development, and if the teacher is not providing explicit phonics instruction along with whole language approach, then spelling instruction is going to remain at the inventive spelling stage. So I hope that sums it up for you. I enjoyed doing the research for this project. I enjoy being on the spelling bee committee, and I enjoy talking about literacy, one of my greatest passions. So thank you for listening today, and have a great night. Thank you.